How's it going, guys? So, according to reports, WBA super middleweight champion Tyron Zeuge is going to be defending his title against Paul Smith. Now, this is not a bad fight, but there's a few things I want to talk about before I get into this breakdown. First of all, Paul Smith has to be the luckiest fighter in boxing, and I'm serious, guys. The amount of world title shots that this guy has been offered now, and I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, this guy, he continues to lose. He's never been a top 10 contender in his entire career, yet he keeps getting plucked out of obscurity to fight for world titles. It's bloody ridiculous, guys. It really is. I mean, he got plucked out of obscurity a couple of years ago to fight Arthur Abraham, even when he wasn't even in the top 10, and not that long prior to that, had been blown away in 2 rounds by George Groves. And yeah, he got plucked out of obscurity for that fight. What happened there was Abraham didn't even take the fight seriously. He came in out of shape and hadn't sparred, hadn't prepared. He saw it as an easy fight. He thought it would be a walkover, and didn't take it seriously. Went in the ring and half-arsed his performance basically, and he won the fight, and he won the fight clearly. However, he didn't look great doing it. Paul Smith gave him a lot of issues just because because he hadn't taken it seriously, because he hadn't sparred and whatnot. His stamina and his timing really was off for the fight, so that it made Paul Smith look a lot more dangerous than he really was, and that spun off a narrative that Paul Smith was somehow a major player at 168. So of course that ended up getting Paul Smith a rematch, and then in the rematch, when Arthur Abraham actually took the fight seriously and actually sparred and actually trained, he absolutely dominated the rematch. He won every round clearly. And he gave Paul Smith an absolute battering in the rematch, and he solidified himself as the better fighter. And that should have been it for Paul Smith's world title days, but he ended up getting a shot at Andre Ward. Now this wasn't exactly for a world title. The fight was at a catch weight of I don't know exactly what weight the guys were for the fight. I can't remember, but it was somewhere in between 168 and 175. It was at a catch weight. And yeah, it was a fight he didn't deserve. He was picked out of obscurity for the fight, coming off 2 defeats, and he ended up getting a battering and ended up getting stopped. Now, this is without even mentioning the fact that this guy was destroyed also by James DeGale earlier in James DeGale's career, when James DeGale had only had 8 fights. So, we're talking about a guy here in Paul Smith who is not a major player in the super middleweight division. He's not an elite fighter. He's not even a gatekeeper. Okay, this guy's a domestic level fighter who continues to get opportunities that he doesn't deserve. Now, enough about that. Let's actually talk about this fight. Now, if Paul Smith was ever able to win a world title, if he ever had an opportunity, I suppose you could say that this is his best opportunity, because the thing about Tyron Zeuge is that this guy is drastically inexperienced. The guy has had 20 professional fights, and the best opponent that he has fought so far is Giovanni Di Carolis. Now, Giovanni Di Carolis is a good fighter. He was pretty much a wild card in the super middleweight division. He was very underrated in my opinion, but he wasn't. The thing about Di Carolis, he wasn't an elite fighter. I mean, I couldn't imagine Di Carolis competing with any of the top guys in the division, like DeGale or Badu Jack, or any of the guys at the top. Even someone like Felix Sturm. I couldn't imagine Di Carolis competing with those guys. So I think that Di Carolis was pretty much the weakest option in terms of going for a world title, and I think that Tyron Zeuge at this stage, I'm not saying that he'll lose to Paul Smith. I think Tyron Zeuge is going to win this fight. I think he's the better fighter, the much fresher fighter at this stage. But I just think that there's a possibility here because of Tyron Zeuge's inexperience. I mean, the guy's only 24 and he's never fought an elite fighter before. I think that his inexperience may cause him a few problems. I mean, Paul Smith, like I said, he's been in the ring with far better opposition. Okay, he's fought Arthur Abraham twice. He's fought George Groves. He's fought James DeGale. He's fought Andre Ward. So, this guy's been around. He's a veteran. He's a guy who has at least sparred and trained with a lot of top-level fighters. I know he's sparred numerous rounds with Carl Froch in the past. So, Paul Smith, if anything else, I mean, if nothing else, he brings a lot of experience to the table, which could be an issue. You never know. But if I was to break down this fight in terms of styles, I think that the way that Tyron Zeuge fights, he should be able to outpoint and outbox Paul Smith comfortably. Paul Smith is a pressure fighter. He's a guy who comes forward and looks to work the body and looks to try and push you back and try and win his fights on volume and aggression. And I don't think that kind of style will be very effective against Zeuge, because Zeuge to me seems as if he's developing into a boxer puncher. He moves quite well. He's young. He's got decent hand speed. It's nothing special, but it's decent. And he showed in his last fight against Di Carolis that he can actually carry his power late. He knocked out Di Carolis in the 12th round, for those of you who don't know, and it was a very high paced, high action fight. In the first fight against Di Carolis, the fight was a draw, and Tyron Zeuge, he injured his arm earlier on in the fight, and then he ended up going the distance, and the fight was a draw. But in that fight, he ran out of gas midway through. However, he seems to have really improved his stamina since that first fight. So, I think that going 12 rounds isn't an issue for him. Whereas with Paul Smith, although he has been 12 rounds several times in his career, he's one of these fighters who, in between fights, tends to blow up in weight. And this is a guy that when he ain't training for a fight, in between training camps and whatnot, he really blows up in weight. So, at this stage of his career, I mean, at 34 years old, you never know, he could be on the slide, and his stamina may be an issue here. So I'm going to go with Tyron Zeuge. I think that the likelihood is here that Tyron Zeuge will probably win this fight on points. A stoppage certainly is possible. Okay, he showed his power in his last fight against Di Carolis, so, Tyron Zeuge, he definitely can punch, but a decision victory, if it were to go the distance, it wouldn't surprise me, and I do think that is a most likely outcome. Now, as I said, the only way that I see Paul Smith pulling this off is if the inexperience of Tyron Zeuge plays a part in this fight. Like if Paul Smith puts him under pressure and Tyron Zeuge just doesn't know how to deal with the pressure, then you never know. Maybe Paul Smith, maybe his veteran experience may come into, it may give him an advantage here. You never know. It might be a mental edge for him going into this fight. But to be honest, I just can't see it. I see Tyron Zeuge winning this fight and defending his title successfully. As far as where would he go after this, there's a lot of good fights for him. A really interesting matchup would be a fight against his stablemate Vincent Fagenboots, who used to hold the belt that Giovanni Di Carolis took off him, and then Tyron Zeuge ultimately won the belt from Di Carolis. So there's a little bit of history there. The guys know each other. They're in the same stable. And they're both young, upcoming prospects, or upcoming names in Germany. So that would be a big domestic fight there. Obviously, you've got Arthur Abraham, who's still lingering around. I mean, a fight with Abraham and Zeuge would be a huge fight. So let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.